My name is Maya, and if I'm being completely honest with myself, that blistering Sunday in August, I was the sole architect of my own solitude. The afternoon had settled over the suburbs like a heavy wool blanket, a suffocating, sticky heat that seemed to suspend time itself in amber. It was one of those quintessential dog days of summer, where the asphalt of the driveway shimmers in waves, and the air itself trembles, distorting the horizon line of the manicured lawns down the street. My family, a loud, joyful, chaotic battalion, had loaded up the SUV at the crack of dawn. They packed it to the brim with coolers, folding chairs, oversized umbrellas, and enough snacks to feed a small army, all setting a course for the lake house. But before we dive into that, if you love true stories that explore the boundaries of the heart, we need your support. Help us reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers. Subscribe now and hit that notification bell. I'd love to know what part of the world you're watching from. Leave it in the comments below. Right now, in this precise instant, they were probably fighting for a patch of sand near the water or enjoying greasy burgers at a crowded lakeside shack, with lake water drying on their skin and the cacophony of summer vacationers ringing in their ears. I, however, had chosen silence. I couldn't explain the motive with absolute precision. Perhaps it was the accumulated exhaustion of a grueling work week, or maybe just that introvert's desperate need to reclaim the house for myself. I wanted to inhabit the space without voices, without demands, without having to be a daughter, a sister, or a peacemaker. Just Maya. The idea of a day in absolute calm, with no schedule, no rush, and without the friction of strangers' bodies on a crowded beach, felt like the true definition of earthly paradise. But before I tell you how my peace transformed into a whirlwind of emotions that would change my life forever, I have to ask you a small favor. If you are passionate about real stories, those that explore the limits of the human heart and make us believe in unexpected love again, we need your support. Help us grow this community. Subscribe right now to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Also, I would absolutely love to know from which corner of the planet you are listening to us today. Is it summer there? Is it freezing cold? Leave it for me in the comments. I read every single one of them. Returning to that afternoon, after eating something light, barely a garden salad because the heat had knotted my stomach, I took a freezing cold shower. I stood there for a long time, letting the icy water race down my spine, washing away the sweat and the lethargy. When I finally stepped out, I dressed in the lightest thing I could find, a flowing white cotton skirt that danced around my legs with the slightest movement, and a comfortable thin strap top. I wrestled my damp hair into a high, messy bun, securing it with a clip, and surrendered myself to the only possible refuge against the 100-degree heat wave marking the thermometer, my bedroom, my sanctuary. I closed the blinds, leaving only a tiny slit of blinding white sunlight to cut through the dust motes, and I cranked the window air conditioning unit to its maximum power. The monotonous mechanical hum of the machine became a lullaby. I lay back on my bed, feeling the crisp coolness of the clean sheets against my skin, and closed my eyes. I was just about to cross the threshold into that sweet drowsiness of a Sunday nap, that sacred moment where consciousness dissolves into dreams. When reality decided to play a cruel practical joke, it happened all at once. A dry, deafening crack resonated from the street, sounding like a gunshot or a massive electrical whip snap. Boom! It was as if a transformer down the block had decided to simply surrender to the heat wave. In a matter of milliseconds, the little green pilot. Light on my air conditioner flickered and died. The comforting hum ceased. The fan blades spun down to a halt. The world was plunged into an absolute, dense, and threatening silence. Fantastic. I muttered into my pillow, covering my eyes with my forearm, refusing to accept what had just happened. Without electricity, the oasis turned into an oven in a matter of minutes. The air, which seconds before had been a cool balm, stagnated. The heat, which had been unbearable outside, now invaded my refuge, becoming stifling. I got up with a groan, already feeling a treacherous bead of sweat sliding down the back of my neck. I shuffled out of the room, frustrated, my bare feet padding on the hardwood. The house was in semi-darkness with the blinds drawn. I went to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator. The light didn't turn on there either, and blindly groped for a bottle of cold water before everything inside warmed up. I was drinking anxiously, leaning against the granite countertop, trying to figure out if I should just get in my car and drive around with the AC on, when I heard footsteps in the living room. I froze. Panic prickled my skin for a split second. I was alone. No one was supposed to have keys except my parents. But then, a familiar voice, a voice that had the unique gift of accelerating my pulse and calming me down simultaneously, broke the silence. "Maya, are you in there? Or have you melted into a puddle already?" It was Ethan. He appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, his silhouette backlit by the fierce light coming from the hallway window. Ethan, my lifelong friend, the boy next door with whom I had shared afternoons of homework, scraped knees, and teenage secrets. There he stood, with that crooked, lopsided grin, tall, with his brown hair messily styled, though probably just from running his hands through it, and a gray t-shirt that clung slightly to his chest. His eyes shone with that habitual spark, as if he knew a joke that the rest of the universe was ignoring. "What are you doing here in the middle of this thermal apocalypse?" I asked, trying to sound annoyed, slamming a drawer shut with more force than necessary to hide the lurch my heart had given upon seeing him. "I came to see if your power went out too," he replied, shrugging with that effortless naturalness that always disarmed me. "Looks like a blown transformer. The whole grid is down for the neighborhood. And well, honestly, I wanted to see you." The words left his mouth so naturally, so casually, that for an instant, I thought I had imagined that last part. "I wanted to see you." I shook my head, feigning annoyance to hide the heat rising to my cheeks, praying the gloom of the kitchen concealed my blush. "Well, yes, here we are," I said, fanning myself with my hand. "Enjoying this improvised sauna. I don't know how we're going to survive if this lasts much longer." Ethan laughed, a deep, comforting sound that vibrated in the small space. He leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. His biceps tensed slightly, and I had to force myself to look away. "What I wouldn't give for a pool right now, Maya, or a teleporter to zap us to the lake with your family." "Yeah, well, we have neither," I replied, rolling my eyes but smiling despite myself. "It's our turn to sweat and deal with it. It's the punishment for being antisocial and staying in the city." He looked at me sideways, with that tilt of his head I knew all too well. It meant danger. It meant a crazy idea had just been born in his chaotic and wonderful mind. "Hey," he started, his voice dropping an octave. "I think I'm going to the backyard. I'm going to turn on the hose, just like when we were kids and played Water Wars. I bet you don't dare join me." "Excuse me?" I replied, crossing my arms over my chest, adopting my defensive posture. "You are not going to do that. You are 23 years old, Ethan." He arched an eyebrow, defiant. That damn eyebrow. No. You don't think I'm capable, Maya. You think I've become a boring adult. Of course not, I said, trying to maintain composure, though his intense gaze was making me waver. It's just that it's ridiculous. There was a mischievous glint in his eyes, a promise of adventure. Well, if you say so, but what if I show you I'm dead serious? Before I could respond or formulate a logical excuse, he was already walking toward the back patio without looking back, his stride determined. I stood there, petrified for a few seconds, debating between sensibility and the impulsive desire to follow him. Finally, curiosity won. I followed him to the sliding glass door that led to the garden. I watched him uncoil the green garden hose attached to the brick wall, right under the shade of the massive old oak tree my father had planted decades ago. Ethan turned the spigot, and the sound of water rushing through the rubber, breaking the dense, sticky silence, was almost hypnotic. Shh. He tested the temperature with his hand, splashing droplets that sparkled like diamonds in the harsh sun, and then looked at me over his shoulder. Come here, he called. His voice was soft, but loaded with a magnetic conviction. You'll see. It works. I made a face of skepticism, though inside I was dying to join him. No way. I am not planning on ending up soaked and with my clothes ruined. Come on, Maya, he insisted, stepping closer, the hose in his hand dripping onto the dry, yellowing grass. You're melting in there. You're flushed from the heat. Come feel a little coolness. I promise not to drown you, unless it becomes necessary. I laughed softly, shaking my head, but something inside me gave way. He was right. The heat was unbearable, a claw tightening around my throat. Slowly, I took a few steps toward him, stepping out onto the patio, feeling the slap of the afternoon sun on my skin. I advanced a couple of yards and stopped, eyeing him warily. He smiled at me with that arrogant confidence that deep down I loved. "Ready?" "Wait," I exclaimed, raising my hands like a shield. "You're not going to spray me just like that. That's treason." "Then do it yourself," he provoked, offering me the nozzle of the hose, extending his arm toward me. "Take control." I hesitated a second longer, but then, without thinking, I moved forward. My hands touched his to grasp the nozzle, and for an instant, our fingers interlaced over the cold, wet plastic. Time seemed to slow down. The world reduced to the point of contact on our skin. I looked at him in surprise, feeling an electric current that had nothing to do with the power outage. He held my gaze. His mocking smile softened, revealing something deeper, something vulnerable. "It's cold," he murmured, leaning imperceptibly toward me. "No," I responded, my voice barely a whisper, trapped in his gravity. "I haven't decided if I want to get wet yet." Ethan let out a stifled, husky laugh, and without warning, he took advantage of my distraction. He twisted his wrist, aiming the stream right at me. The icy water hit me squarely in the chest, ripping a sharp scream of surprise from my throat that echoed across the entire yard. "Ethan!" I shrieked. I burst out laughing, trying to escape, retreating clumsily, but he was fast. He grabbed me gently by the wrist, not to hurt me, but to pull me back into his orbit. "Now it's my turn," he said, his tone amused. But there was something else, a vibrating tension in the air. Between laughter and splashes, the atmosphere began to transform. Water ran down my face, my arms, soaking my white skirt and light top, which now clung to my skin like a second layer, shyly outlining my silhouette. I tried to escape his attacks, running around the trunk of the oak tree, but he cut me off. Or perhaps I wasn't trying so hard to run away as I pretended. He was laughing with that deep, genuine sound that was always contagious. Seeing him like this, with his wet hair falling over his forehead, his drenched t-shirt defining his torso, it was the image of pure happiness. "Ethan, stop," I protested breathlessly, while he dodged my pathetic attempts to snatch the hose back. "You're cheating! You're taking advantage of your height!" "Cheating? I'm just making sure you cool down properly, Miss Killjoy," he replied with a wide grin, water dripping from his chin. "Besides, you have to admit this is 1,000 times better than being in there melting in the dark." I sighed, pushing a strand of wet hair out of my face, feigning irritation, but it was impossible to deny. There was something incredibly liberating about being there, under the blazing sun, and simultaneously wrapped in the caress of the cold water. And of course, there was him. Ethan had the gift of turning any simple situation into something unforgettable. His mere presence seemed to ignite something inside me, a flame I had been ignoring for too long, or trying to smother under the label of best friends. Okay, I yielded, raising my hands in surrender, breathing heavily. "You win, but now give me that. It's my turn for revenge." He arched an eyebrow, weighing the hose in his hand. "Your turn? I don't know if I trust you, Maya. You have a murderer's look in your eyes. Then come closer and find out," I provoked, taking a brave step toward him, challenging him with my gaze. Small pause. If you've made it this far and are feeling the heat of this story, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love reading your stories and knowing who is on the other side of the screen. Let's continue. Ethan hesitated a second, biting his lower lip, but then he leaned slowly toward me, feinting as if to hand me the hose. However, at the last instant, he deflected it upward, putting his thumb over the nozzle to create a fine mist that fell over both of us. I let out a little yelp, but this time I didn't try to run. The water fell over us like a curtain of crystal rain. Instead of backing away, I rested my wet hands on his chest to stabilize myself. I felt his heart beating wildly beneath the wet fabric. "That was a dirty move," I claimed, looking him in the eyes, no longer feigning indignation, just watching him with an intensity that scared me. "Dirty move," That phrase isn't in my vocabulary when it comes to winning, he said, winking at me, though his voice trembled slightly. His look changed. The glimmer of mischief gave way to something darker, denser. We were so close now that I could feel his breathing mixing with mine. The air around us seemed charged with static, a tension that neither of us had dared to name in years of friendship. Or perhaps it was just the summer heat finally claiming its victory over reason. "You're shivering," he murmured. His voice was husky, almost an intimate whisper. His free hand moved slowly, with reverent delicacy, and his fingers grazed my wet arm, tracing the path of a water droplet. "Are you cold?" he asked. Though we both knew the answer, I shook my head, unable to find the words, hypnotized by his hazel eyes. "No, it's not cold." His eyes traveled over my face, stopping at my wet lips. The water droplets shone in the sunlight filtering through the oak leaves, suspended around us like fairy dust. He moved a centimeter closer, and then another, until our faces were separated only by a sigh, by that infinite space where destinies are, played out. "Maya," he whispered my name, and the way he said it, with that mixture of longing and fear, made my heart give a brutal lurch in my chest. "What?" I exhaled. "You know I've never been able to stay away from you, right? That I always look for an excuse, like a power outage or a hose, whatever it takes." My cheeks burned hotter than the sun. The world stopped. "What are we doing, Ethan?" I murmured, returning his gaze, looking for a sign, a certainty. He smiled, his roguish grin. It was a shy, sincere smile that lit up his entire face and took 5 years off him. "We are creating a new memory, I think." And without further hesitation, he closed the distance separating us. His lips grazed mine with devastating tenderness. A kiss that was soft at first, almost a question, a tentative exploration. My arms moved by instinct, taking on a life of their own, and wrapped around his neck, my fingers tangling in his wet hair. Upon feeling my response, he groaned softly and deepened the contact. He pulled me toward him, pressing my body against his, leaving no space even for air. The summer heat seemed to dissolve, replaced by another type of fire, one that was born in the belly and spread through my veins. It was a fire of belonging, of years of almosts and maybes that were finally becoming now. When we separated, our foreheads remained touching, our ragged breaths mixing. "That was unexpected," I whispered, without opening my eyes, fearing it was a dream. "Unexpected for you, perhaps, but inevitable for me," he replied, caressing my cheek with his thumb, wiping a drop of water from my cheekbone. "Don't you think?" I opened my eyes and found his gaze fixed on me. I nodded, unable to suppress the foolish smile born on my lips. Maybe so." He took my hand, interlacing our fingers firmly, and guided me to the densest shade of the old oak tree. There we let ourselves fall onto the cool grass, soaked, ignoring the mud or the ruined clothes. The world reduced to the two of us under the green canopy of branches. "There's no going back after this, Maya," he said quietly, getting serious for a moment. "If we cross this line, I don't want to lose you as a friend if it goes wrong." I swallowed hard. That kiss had shifted the foundations of our relationship, opening a door I didn't know if I was ready to walk through, but one I desired with all my soul. I started to say, but fear choked me. He placed a finger on my lips. "Don't say anything rational. Just tell me one thing. Do you feel the same as I do? Or was it just the heat?" I looked into his eyes, full of overwhelming sincerity, stripped of any mask, and I knew I couldn't lie to him. Not to him, not to us. "Yes," I answered. My voice was firm, though low. "I feel it, Ethan. I've felt it for a long time." A shine of pure relief illuminated his face, as if he had lifted 100-pound weight off his shoulders. "Then, that is the only thing that matters right now." He moved closer, his arm wrapping around my wet shoulders, pulling me into his side. I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling the dampness of his t-shirt and the heat of his skin. "Do you have any idea how many times I've imagined this?" he confessed, kissing the top of my head. "How much I've wanted it while watching you laugh with others, or when you told me about your problems. I was afraid of ruining what we had." "Me too," I admitted, closing my eyes and enjoying the moment. "But I think what we have now is much better." Before I could add anything else, He kissed me again, this time with more depth, with an urgency accumulated over years. I let myself go completely. I got lost in him, in the sensation that all the barriers, all the containment walls between us had collapsed, leaving only the pure and pulsating truth of our feelings. Every caress, every look was full of a respect and tenderness I had never known with anyone else. There was trust, blind trust in him, in us. "You are so beautiful, Maya," he whispered against my lips. I smiled, swept away by the whirlwind of emotions. "You're not so bad yourself for a wet disaster," I joked, pulling him toward me. It was just the two of us in our own universe, under the oak tree, while the afternoon advanced and the sun began to lower, softening the heat. We created a moment that we knew would remain etched in our hearts forever. The day of the blackout, the day of the water. Later, when the distant voices of my family and the slamming of car doors announced their return, we jumped up. We looked at each other, soaked, hair messy and eyes bright, trying to hide the goofy smiles we couldn't wipe off our faces. "Shall we keep this to ourselves for now?" asked Ethan, winking at me while he wrung out the hem of his t-shirt. "For now," I nodded, a wave of complicity running through me. It will be our secret. That scorching summer afternoon wasn't just the start of something new. It was the beginning of a story I knew I would remember forever. A story of laughter, cold water, a timely power outage, and burning hearts. Our story. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for reaching the end of this tale. I hope you felt the emotion and the coolness of that afternoon as much as I did while telling it. If you liked it and want more romantic stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give the video a big like. It helps us so much. I'm also curious. Have you ever had an unexpected romantic moment with a friend? Tell me in the comments. I love reading about your experiences and knowing where you are watching from. Subscribe for more stories full of emotion. A huge hug, and until next time, goodbye.